Hello and welcome to the Stembox presentation video. So in this video, we're going to take a little look at using the software and the different settings you can find to get off to a good start. In this video, I'm using an FLX10, but don't panic. Stembox is compatible with all Midi controllers since you have a mapping section in the settings that lets you map absolutely every button. It's just going to depend on the number of buttons you have on your controller, but otherwise you'll just map these functions somewhere else. So first off, you should know that Stembox works with a Recordbox export USB drive. So here in the navigation, we'll find a browse button, and I'll be able to directly plug in my Recordbox export USB drive. So if you're using the software on your own computer, you'll be able to plug your USB drive right into your computer. I use the Stembox Display connected to my computer, so I just plug this USB stick into the nearby PC. With Stembox Pro standalone, plug it straight into the rear USB port. Same for any use. Here I'm on the display version. I plug the USB key into my computer. It's detected here and then scans automatically. This drive is analyzed, so data shows here. Otherwise, analysis starts automatically. It may take time, but saves locally and won't rerun unless you add tracks to export. Then, I can click directly on my drive, and here we'll get to all of my playlists. So I can navigate through my playlists like this. I can also choose to navigate through artists, albums, all the tracks directly. Harmonic keys, playlists. Here I'll find the history of the tracks that were played during the session. Here I'll have a matching. When you play a track on the left deck, it'll suggest tracks here that are in the same harmonic key. And finally, I'll have the search directly here, which will let me search for tracks. So here if I search right here, for example, it'll directly suggest tracks to me. If you click on playlist here, it'll let you focus only on the playlists and not have the navigation bar on the left. This whole section is controllable with your controller. I can browse right in the playlist. Left side navigation uses the touchscreen. In playlists, you see a preview column, cover art, track title, tracks BPM, harmonic key 2. Then pick an extra column. In split view, the library is narrower, so less room for more columns, but click here to show color. As you can see, we can also show the rating. I haven't saved any, and other parameters that are available here. You also have the option to change the font size to make it smaller or bigger. I'll stick with medium font. In the track preview, we'll be able to see the hot cues. We'll also be able to sort the tracks by BPM by clicking here. By harmonic key by clicking there. And otherwise by default in alphabetical order by clicking here. So then I'll be able to load a track onto the right deck. To open the left library, I'll simply click on the load button for the left track, and then I'll be able to scroll and pick the next track. As for the pads down at the bottom, I'll have the hot cues, of course. I also have the pad FX here, which offers a whole range of effects that I can configure. Here I'm going to have the beat jump, which lets me move around in the track. And all the way on the right, I have the sampler with 8 pre-recorded sounds. Now we can see the secondary pads. So if I press Shift and click on Hot Cue, I get to the stems. How do you prepare stems in Stembox? You just have to go back to the library. So if I want to prepare the stems for this track, I'll simply click the button that was assigned to send this track to the stems waiting list. So for me, on the FLX10, I mapped this button, and you see that as soon as I double-clicked on it, the track got a pink burger icon. That icon means the track was sent to the stems preparation. In the stem manager, the track is being analyzed into stems. Analyses are stored on your machine. In Stembox software or display, save files to the USB stick or an external drive. Store them on an external drive to save USB space. Stembox Pro has a micro SD slot to add extra memory for stems. For that, you just need to choose here if you want to save the stems to the USB drive or otherwise, save it to a drive of your choice. As soon as your track is completely analyzed, we'll be able to use the stems live when it's loaded onto a deck. Now the track's analyzed. Can see the stems saved on disk. If I go back and select it, its icon isn't pink anymore, meaning analysis is complete. Since the track has already been played in this session, it turned green, and we'll actually find it in the history right here. We can also see on the left now that we have a track loaded, the tracks that match, and as we can see here, we have a whole selection of tracks with a matching key. I'm going to go ahead and reload our track with the stems, and here, as we can see, we'll have them show up right at the bottom.
Excites me while the drum machine drives me.
On the FLX10, we have dedicated native buttons that let us control the stems directly. Not everyone has an FLX10, so they're on these pads too, letting you control stems from any controller. We can also apply all color FX and beat FX effects to only one stem. This is a feature on the FLX10 right here. But in the same way, you will have access to it on any controller with these buttons right here. So what does it mean? Simple. Any beat FX and color FX you use here with all three on hits everywhere on the track. So if I send a reverb, it will apply to the whole track. But you can choose to apply the reverb only to the vocal. And to do that, we will disable the FX on the instrumental and on the drums. And now if I send it again, on the FLX10, you'll be able to control it with these buttons. But to make this accessible on all controllers, these settings are available at the pad level. Press Shift plus Pad Effect 1 to open Drumstation. It's a simple drum machine to add punch and movement. Sync to your track's BPM automatically. I'll be able to activate it by clicking here, and then I'll have the option to pick an instrument and put that instrument on the pads right underneath. Here we're gonna have the scroll speed, so here it'll be every beat. I can ask for twice a beat, 4 times, or 8 times to go really fast. So here, for example, if I drop a clap, you can also apply effects to the Drumstation. For example, an LC echo. And we're going to control it here. The reverb. So if I change the effect and put a kick instead, I also have the snare.
and finally the hi-hat.
Remember, once you're done doing your rhythmic effect, turn off the drum station. Then if we move on by clicking Shift, Beat, Jump, we get to the beat loop.
So you have 1/4, 1/2, and 1/8 loops. To exit a loop, you press the exit button. Of course, you can create your loops the usual way with the buttons here. Next, a special feature on Stembox. In the bottom right, you have what's called the loop saver.
So to activate it, we'll click here. And as you can see, on the bottom right, it created an orange rectangle right here. That'll make sure, when we reach the end of the sound, that you never miss your transition because you didn't have time to do it. So here the loop saver will automatically enter a 4-beat loop as soon as it reaches the end of the track. We can also change the number of beats for the final loop. What does it look like if I set it to an 8-beat loop, for example? So we'll skip ahead to the end of the track.
Now I'm at track's end. The loop's already set.
And here will be saved at the end of the track. I'll have all the time I need to move on to the transition. It just lets you secure the end of your track. Finish up with the pads. You'll have the classic key shift by clicking on Shift and on Sampler. And so here we're on a classic key shift that will let you raise or lower the pitch of a sound. So that's it for the pads in Stembox. If you have light up pads on your controller, they should show up like what you see on the screen. Otherwise, they'll just light up with the default color. Next, we'll find all the basic features, namely the sound color FX. For controllers that have the sound colors directly as an option here, you just have to click on it to change it. The color FX shows up right here. For those that have a simple FX select button or another button, you just have to click on it a few times, and it'll directly change the color FX. Same for Beat FX. On the FLX10, I change it by turning the knob right here. On smaller controllers, tap FX, select a few times to switch the Beat FX directly. It's on the right in Stembox. Stembox supports 4 channels. In split view, to jump to deck 4, click here and you're on player 4. This works only with 4-channel controllers. You can switch decks here anytime and return to the previous one. Same for deck 1 and 3. And since we're in the split view, the decks replace each other, but you can also stack the tracks to see them better when doing 4 channels. It's much nicer, and for that we're going to switch to the large view. So far I've shown split view in Stembox, but there's also a classic wide view. Open the menu, go to Preferences, Mix View, and choose Large. The interface rebuilds into wide mode, and the waveforms now stack vertically, one above the other again. If you're more used to mixing in this view at first, it might be easier for you. And here we have a much more classic view, which helps you get started better with Stembox. And you'll be able to open the 4 channels with a button you can map however you like on your controller. So I mapped this one, and as you can see, I switched to 4 channels. So here if I want to mix on deck 3 and 4, I just click there. As you can see, the deck switched on Stembox, and I'll be able to go into the library. As you can notice here, the library is much wider in this view. So if you prefer displaying a lot of info, this view might be better for you. And here we'll get a direct preview of the tracks in the playlist, which you don't have in the split view. So I'll be able to go straight to a track and load it onto deck 4 and do exactly the same thing on deck 3. And there you'll be able to mix on 4 deck. Good to know that the deck currently displayed here, so the active jog wheel, is in white on the screen. If I click here, we see that the 4 has turned white, as well as at the bottom. That's the wide view in Stembox. It's your choice. Switching back now to split view. In split, zoom all waveforms together with the mouse wheel or a map knob. Pick a spare control, like sampler volume, your choice. Here I can zoom in or out evenly on both decks, or on one deck by holding a button. I map the unused link. And so, by holding this button and turning the scroll wheel, I'll be able to zoom in just on that deck. You can also edit the tempo grid. As you can see here, my white and red dashes don't fall exactly on the waveform. There's a slight offset. So for that I'm going to come click here. And there I'll be able to edit the beat grid. I'll be able to raise or lower the track's original BPM. As you can see, it does change it in the library. For my part, I'm going to leave it at 131.1. It's just an offset issue. So for that I'm going to move the position by holding here and adjusting. And here, since we're at the beginning of the track, I want the first red beat to be shifted. So I can just shift it like this with the arrows right here. Now a quick tour of Stembox settings. What you can customize and the basics for controllers and audio. I'll open the menu, then the Stembox tab. Here you choose the main view, like wide or split. I'll also be able to choose the preview style. So if I want a waveform or a grid, as you can see right now we're on a grid, that'll be the preview of the opposite deck right above. I can also choose a waveform to get the waveform of the opposite deck right above. Then here I'll have the choice between 3 waveform styles. I'll have the blue one, which will look like this. So classic. I'll also have the RGB. So that'll be like this. And to finish, my favorite, the 3-band, which is the one we've been using since the beginning of this video. In Preferences, you'll find frame rate in the end of track warning. When the audio nears its end, the preview track flashes, as shown here. You can choose it to start 20, 30, or 40 seconds before it ends there. Then we can choose the play marker position. So what's that? Currently, we're on center. As you can see, the play marker is in the center of the deck. And if you want a bit more visibility on what's coming up next, you can just set the play marker position to left. And here I'll have the play marker shifted to the left. So here I'll have more of a preview of what's coming up in the track next. Then the track time display. We'll be able to choose if we want to show the remaining time or the elapsed time. So here we're on remain, which means that here we see we only have 9 seconds left. And if I want to display the time, it'll show me the time that's passed since the beginning of the track. We can also choose the track load point. The hot cue pads. What this defines here, it's very simple. When you create a hot cue, for example here, it'll let me choose if I need to hold it down for the hot cue to play, like the cue button right here, or if I can just press it once to launch the track. So here if I change the settings and put it on hold, and here I'll have to hold down the pad to keep the music playing. Next, you can invert the tempo fader. It's set to no. Move it down and it speeds up. Move it up and it slows. Click yes to reverse that. It depends, but we most times leave it on no. And finally, we'll have the choice for the backspin. So what is that? It's simply when you spin the jog backwards. Do you prefer it to go really far back, or do you want it to stop right away? For example, if I put the setting in the middle, when I trigger a backspin on deck 2. Whereas if I set it to shorter, it stops much sooner. So I'm going to set it right around here. And then we'll look at the last setting, which is the theme. So right now I'm on the dark theme, but I can switch to light mode. In that case, it'll reload the interface. And here I'll end up in light mode. So that's for people who prefer it. In bright sunlight, you'll have more contrast on the elements. And so we'll have the whole interface in light mode. I'm going to switch back to dark mode. Now that we've seen everything in the Stembox, we can go take a look at the controls. So here I'll find the controller I connected. So it'll automatically show up here as soon as it's detected via Midi. And I'll have the mapping associated with it. Just so you know, all Midi controllers work with Stembox. You can even create your own mapping. Either you just edit the existing one to change the buttons by clicking on the pencil right here, and there you'll have a whole bunch of parameters you can tweak. Or you can create your own mapping from scratch by clicking on the plus button right here. Then, right below, we'll find the sound output, so the type of audio device being used. So right now, I plug the audio into my FLX10, so I'm on audio, but I'll also be able to choose MME and other audio settings. It depends on your controller and the drivers installed on your machine. Main source is below, using DDJ-FLX10 audio. Click to list sources. If controller isn't shown, choose Rescan Output Devices. It should appear if the driver's installed. The FLX10, which is plugged into the speakers, needs to be sent to channels 1 to 2. For the headphone output, I hadn't set it up yet, but I can put the FLX10 on channel 3 and 4. That'll let me get the output in my headphones when I press Q. So the audio buffer, you don't have to touch it, but the higher it is, the more fluid the sound will be and it avoids crackling. If you lower it on the other hand, you'll get more precision, which is especially used for scratching. Then if I click on effects here, I'll find the effects I decided to assign to my pads. So on the pad FX here. So as you can see, here we have a whole list of effects I can choose from. First off, the effect I want to apply, and especially its timing. So if I want it on 4, 2, 1, etc., that'll directly impact my pad FX right here. And you have the option to choose from about 10 effects with different timings. For the mixer, I'll be able to disable the crossfader. What does that mean? Quite simply that the crossfader right here, I'll decide it no longer has an impact on my channels for my part 1 mix like this. So here it was on no, but I'm going to switch it to yes, which means no matter the position of the crossfader, my channels will always play. You'll also have other settings for the crossfader and the equalizer right here. If you want to set it up, you can directly cut the frequencies. Then you have the recording section to record your audio, and the display section, which lets you choose a few settings. That'll mainly be for people using the Stembox software to project directly onto the Stembox display. We can turn it on right here. This doesn't apply to people who have Stembox Pro. So that wraps up the overall tour of Stembox's features. It's software that lets you have super customized views, focused on performance. So I invite you to check it out by heading to stembox.com. You get all the updates included for life. And I'll see you soon.